Yeah, so 5G is more of a bad thing. Some people are waking up to the fact that this radiation might be harmful, and that's good. However, a lot of people who get into the 5G idea, some of them forget that everything previously installed was also harmful. So that's the twist here. And some people say, well, oh, I don't have 5G in my city, so it means I can use my phone all day and talk on the phone, and I have a router under my bed, and I'm all good, right? No, because if you look at the NTP study, that's the National Toxicology Program, the results which came out in 2018, that's the largest study ever, almost the largest study ever done worldwide on toxicity or carcinogenicity in rats and mice. And the conclusion was this radiofrequency radiation at non-heating levels. We talked about heat. It's not about heat, because the researchers made sure that the heat was not increasing in the cages used for rats and mice. So that's good. They did remove that factor to show that this is a carcinogen. This is a definite carcinogen in rats and mice. That's their conclusion. But here's the kicker. This was on 2G and 3G antennas that they used. So what does it mean? In 2018, we know for sure that 2G and 3G is dangerous, while people freak out about 5G. In 2037, we'll have 11Gs, and we'll conclude that 5G is dangerous. So our ability to study that stuff is greatly surpassed by our ability to come up with new technology. So when you see 5G, it's just more towers closer to people's home. There's new frequencies in the higher spectrum that a lot of people are rightfully concerned about. There's a total sum of 0 biological studies using real 5G antennas or real 5G phones on these higher frequencies to show or disprove. I doubt that's going to happen if the study design is proper, that this stuff impacts humans or all of biology. So there's 0 studies before rolling it out, because again, it is based on the foundation that is completely broken, that everything below 5G or before 5G is safe. So engineers at the moment, there's more than 10 or 15 groups. Arthur Furstenberg from the Invisible Rainbow sends a newsletter from time to time, and each newsletter makes me more depressed, to be honest, because he's on top of the research and the different companies. For example, there's 10 to 20 corporations that are launching satellites in space as part of the 5G Internet of Things array. So SpaceX wants to launch 42,000 satellites, maybe more. The FCC has said yes, even though they technically couldn't, because the satellites now do this worldwide circle. And when they go over Italy, for example, they breach international laws around light pollution. So go figure. So the FCC says, yes, we can launch these, no problem. It's US based. But if you come back to us because SpaceX is breaching some international law, well, we don't have jurisdiction. So don't even bother. So that's what the FCC said, by the way. So at the moment, it's a free-for-all. The space is basically the far west, except way colder, I think. But anyway, it's a big mess. There's a lot of space junk, and then there's all these companies that want to launch satellites. So what is it? What are the impacts? There's going to be linked. Most of these satellites are linked to Earth stations. So it means millions more antennas in various countries, because you have to link the satellites. So it's bad enough as we have it at the moment. When you want to deploy more and more towers and more technology, is just more of a bad thing. There's 10 to 15 corporations looking at 6G in the moment. They want to increase in the terahertz frequencies that we never heard before. So they're going to squeeze every cent out of this wireless infrastructure, because it is cool. It is what users think they want, or at least we give them these ideas in their head through publicity and ads. And we tell them, if you have 5G, now you're the king. And now you're something, Nick. And you can walk out of there, and then you have streaming 4K Instagram stories, and you can have a lot of fun with your friends. And it all seems good, except that we know that the previous technologies now are very likely a class 1 carcinogen. So very soon, I hope it's going to break. There's going to be a breaking point. And scientists have been telling us for decades now, we have to put a moratorium. We have to stop these new wireless technologies. If you want to develop technologies, they should be wired. They should not use wireless. And to the contrary, we should start reducing the levels that these towers emit. We should start using phones that shield the user against this radiation. The patents have been buried by Nokia and probably Ericsson at the beginning of the 80s and 90s. They have the patents to shield users from radiation, by the way. They've never been used.
Why? Why not? They'd make a lot of money.
I think very soon in the development of these, they've identified that not only is the radiation completely safe, which isn't true, they probably told themselves that or convinced themselves from that, or the CEOs were really crooked. But in the end, they said, well, it's going to cost more to shield users, and maybe it's going to give them a false sense of fear, right? Because it's all safe anyway, so why shield the user? I don't know. I'm just speculating here, to be honest. But I don't know exactly what their thought process was, but they never used it. Now we should take a shovel and find these patents and find these technologies and start reducing the level. So that's really the key. So 5G for me, when I saw all the hype around, oh, 5G is more dangerous than anything else. Yes, in the sense that it's a new technology, it's going to make things way worse. But my book isn't even about 5G, because 5G wasn't even starting to roll out in 2017 when I wrote the manuscript. Even at the end of 2016, I was starting to do the outline. It was not around. And yet the problem was massive at the time. So almost 5 years later, the problem is not only there, it's worse, and then it will get worse. So the adoption of new technologies, if you buy a 5G phone, I don't blame you for buying a 5G phone, because eventually we're going to be forced to buy a 5G phone. They're going to put an update. It's going to slow our phones to death. And if you still want a smartphone and you do something with it, I'm okay with that. However, if you use it for 4 hours per day, now I have a problem, because you're in control of how much you use it. Instead of using your phone all the time, you should try to do all of your business, everything you want to do on a computer, including going on social media, in front of a computer that's wired. And now you don't have that exposure. You have 0% of that exposure from your device. So you have an Ethernet cable that runs from your computer to your router, wherever it happens to be. Sometimes you'll have to run a cable, but it's a small investment in your health. So this is really the message about 5G. And this applies to any future development. Before we know what the safe levels are, we shouldn't just add more of a bad thing. It's just nonsense.